Sad. Som kommer att prata om det som är ordförande Fadera och ordförande Gambia var inne på ungdomar. Varsågod.
Afternoon. Så jag ska prata, jag tror, i engelska. Så ja. Och jag ska försöka fördjupa mig lite. Jag vet att vi har inte för mycket tid. Ja. Jag är I'm going into Swedish. I am a journalist and a social activist. I've probably met a lot of you online, etc. And I've lived in Sweden now for 9 years, 5 years of which was fighting the agenda. So I was basically exiled out of the country, saying that we should not have a dictator in Gambia. I've worked with a lot of youth, both in Gambia and here in Sweden. I will be speaking on both. I'm sure I've seen Adam Tenster. Welcome. I will speak on both, and I'm sure when he comes, he will talk more on the Swedish experience, and that will give us a richer discussion, I think, on how we can find solutions. The Gambia friend that we have is really, the aim of it is really to try and help our youth, both here in Sweden and also in Gambia, to try and get everybody at least to a level where we can help our youth to be able to be self-sufficient. If I talk about problems here in Sweden, as I have seen it, I have seen a lot of youth lost in social services. We haven't really had, and I don't see mainstream Swedish media talking about the number of youth that are being taken into social care, who end up in homes where they are brutalized more than their own homes in where they were taken from. And this is something that the media refuses to talk about. I have sent emails to Metro, to Aftonbladet, and all of these media and say, this is something that you need to investigate, even to Uppdragsgranskning, and say this is something you need to investigate. The numbers are alarming. There are a lot of youth that are going into care who are not being really taken care of. They don't have the support of their parents and their communities anymore, and they end up outside of this situation and end up in gangs, etc., where they get into more trouble and end up in prison, etc. So we're losing a lot of youth to this phenomenon, and we need to come up with solutions. And I guess we will talk about that when we go into more details. When we talk about gang-related crimes as well, we have seen a lot of our black youth getting into gangs, etc. And when I asked a lot of them, I said, what protection do you need? Because when you go into gangs, you're looking for protection. Why are you not self-sufficient or confident enough to stand on your own? What makes you think that the gangs will give you this security? What sort of security do you need? And again, we have a problem with that. Because a lot of our youth are not going into gangs to belong. They're going into gangs to find security. What sort of security? What is it that they lack that makes them feel that there's home in gangs? And at the end of the day, gangs relate to only two things. You're either in prison or you're dead, because you cannot really leave gangs, etc. So we have to be able to, I think the Swedish call it förstärka våra barn, to be able to understand that being confident is important, being self-sufficient, being able to realize that you can say no to peer pressure, etc. is very important in society. And we have to get that into the psyche of our kids, etc., to be able to do that. When we talk about schools as well, schools are failing our children, and we have seen a lot of that. We have children who are coming out, graduating, we call it here, from high school, really, and they come out and everybody says, okay, du har tagit student, det är allt. Nej, det är inte allt. Livet har precis börjat, it has just started for you. We need to be able to get our kids again to understand that the sky should be the limit. And how do we do that? It's important with identity. A lot of our children do not identify with Sweden and do not identify with Gambia, because we create this ambiguity. We create this ambiguity where kids do not, when they go to Gambia, like you said, we're told, when are you going home? Home to them is Sweden for us. And when our kids come here, they're told, do I Afro svensk? You do not see a child with an English background being told you are English Svensk. You do not see Donald Trump, whose parents are from Germany, being told you're German American. So why should we accept these tags that limit us? Why should we accept these tags that push us away from the power that we should have as a community? When our kids are Swedish. Yes, they have a rich background. That is our reality. That is not their reality. We will teach them about our background because that's important for them to know. But the first priority for them should be how are they successful in this environment that is home to them. And again, we have a problem when it comes to identity with our kids, and I think it is one of the biggest crises that we have as a community, especially in Sweden. Again, communication, this is also very important, and it links again to Swedish mainstream media. Who are the role models for black boys? Who are the role models for black girls? We have seen maybe now a lot of some sort of coverage of black celebrities, etc. We're thankful that we have people like Adam Fenster who are in the media. Sometimes I see him very upset and leave platforms, etc. And you know, we have Alice, who is the Minister for Culture. We have budding Gambians coming up like Lovett Jallo, etc. But we need to see more mainstream media, more positive stories about black men and women that will inspire the younger generation. And again, how do we do that in terms of communicating? That's important. When we go back to Gambia, I always say that our struggle is multifaceted because we have youths from Gambia who also have problems. They feel that the only way out of the country, or the only way that they can be successful, is if they leave the country. And I ask them, what is the Gambian dream? When we talk to the youth, I tell them, okay, in America, for example, you have the US dream, or the dream that the sky is the limit for you if you work hard and you do well and you make something of yourself. But what is the Gambian dream? For us, the reality is that the Gambian dream is to leave the Gambia. We do not have a dream that we should develop our countries. And again, largely that's due to poor leadership. Whether we want to accept it or not, that is due to poor leadership that is failing the youths in Africa. We have, for example, schools that are basically not functional. The failure rate last year of results from the WAEC examination, that's the same as high school graduation here, when you take students in Sweden, was 87% that failed. So how do you then develop those youth to be able to take over for the generations to come? So when we talk about youth, the problems of the youth, we're not really just talking about now, the issues that are happening now. We have to think and say, how do we plan for the future? Who are going to be the people that are actually going to take over from a generation of very talented, very educated Gambians to a generation of 97% failure in exams? That's a serious human resource deficit that we need to look at. Again, when youths come into, take the back way, etc., into Europe, we try and tell them, don't do it, but they see, maybe they see somebody like myself or other people who are in Europe, and they think we are successful, we are doing well, so if they come here, at least they'll also be able to take care of themselves. Can I fault that thinking? Can I tell them, don't do it? And so what we need to do, I think, for the most part, is to try and talk to the EU and other developing partners, including the Swedish government, that these youths are not coming into the country because they are refugees because there's a war in Gambia. They are coming into these countries, especially in Europe, because they are economic migrants. If you do not have simple, basic water to wash with, you do not have electricity, and this is what our people deal with on a daily basis. You do not have water, you do not have electricity, you do not have good schools. You go out of school a failure. not because of your fault, but because of the poor leadership that hasn't been able to put in policies in place to try and help you develop. And you think, for example, that if you at least move from this country and go somewhere else, you'll be able to develop yourself and help your parents. That's not a mindset that we can fault. But again, we need to ask the EU, the Swedish government, and other donor agencies to change their mindset and the way that they think about helping Africans. You have now a generation of Africans who are in Europe. What do you do with them? You want to send them back to Gambia. They've been here, or other countries. They've been here for 6 months or more. Why not invest in skills training so that when they go back to their countries, they're able to be productive in society? Why don't we advocate for refugees that come over to be able to provide them with skills training, to be able to provide them, because that's something that they do not have in their countries. At least if you provide them with that and maybe offer them something to go back to their countries and develop it themselves, that would be a start in terms of working towards addressing the problem of youth unemployment. Again, it comes back to working with CBOs, community-based organizations, because they reach the grassroots. Governments have beautiful policies. They come up with the most beautiful written policies, etc. But when it comes to reaching the grassroots, when it comes to actually ensuring that they help the grassroots, that is something that they're failing on. So why not work with community-based groups to reach the grassroots, to help these people, create environments and opportunities for them to be able to stay in the country and do something, to be able to develop themselves through entrepreneurship, etc. Because we cannot all work in offices, we are not all talented when it comes to education, but a lot of us can be entrepreneurs and create environments that will be able to at least have some income generating activities for ourselves. So again, when we talk about change in Sweden and in Africa, I think structural legal change is needed, especially in Sweden in terms of the social tjänstlagen, I think it's called. And I think that it's very important that all of us advocate, especially now that we're lucky to have the Gambia Riksförbundet, that we advocate to have some sort of involvement when it comes to our children being taken into care. Because if you take a child, and especially an African child, and place them in a white family that does not understand their background, that does not understand anything about them, again, you're creating problems for that child in terms of identity. Already that child is confused with his identity. How do you then put that child in a situation where you confuse him or her even more? The only thing it leads to is the problems that we see in our society today. So I thank you, and then when we talk, I guess we'll be able to answer more questions.